Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to my channel. Today, let's talk about Worlds 2024 that happened in Hawaii this past weekend, or for me, finished the very early hours of this morning. In today's video, we're going to break down exactly what happened there, what was the meta share, what were the top decks that ended up winning the event, and how did the likes of Miraidon and Iron Hands do incredibly well and have such deep runs at the tournament. Let's also look at some of the winning lists, as well as also the predictions that we made last week. Were we any of them correct or on the money? Did we respect the likes of Iron Thorns? And did we think that Charizard Dustmon would do actually a lot better than we really thought it was? Hope everyone really enjoyed watching the event, or if you were competing, hope you had an amazing time there. Personally, I thought the production value which they put into the stream this past week was incredible. I'm absolutely so stoked to see how it's really going to improve the likes in the regionals and internationals going forward. So without further ado, let's look at the day one meta share. Now, the huge shocking value here was Regidrago being nearly 25% of the metagame. This was an absolute shocker, I thought. But same time, looking at the end of the Twilight Masquerade sort of format, as well as also the likes of Shroud of Fable at the start of this one, this deck was absolutely dominating on the online scene. Definitely doing a lot better in our sort of format before, but after in Japan. So definitely something very interesting as well. Charizard being 12.8% was definitely a little bit lower than I really gave it credit. Lots of people thought of a Dustin, myself included, was definitely the best way to play this one. But the likes of Thorns opted to not play this one and have the likes of Rabska in it instead. Why Rabska? Well, it protects from the likes of Kiram in the Regidrago V-Star, as well as also the Dracopults from spraying their damage counters. So that's definitely something which I think is very much needed in Charizard to bench a Manaphy and a Jirachi as well. Lugia, being a 12.6%, again, isn't too shocking. Has a really good Regidrago matchup, plus also really helps in the likes of Block Clacks as well, which was just outside the graphics as well. Plus, obviously, people love this deck. It's very easy to play. Gardevoir being at 9.6, personally, I think this was the best deck to play in the format. And there's a quite good few reasons about this one. Monkey Dory adds so many things, despite some damage counter as well. But also making sure you can tag over your Gardevoir EX, hit that magic 220 number, which I think is incredibly valuable. And having the TM Devo means you can take multiple prizes against other evolution style decks. Raging Bolt EX being just under 10% was the big basic 2-prizer. It's very fast, very aggressive. It can do over 300 damage turn after turn after turn. But the deck which definitely no one really saw coming, but lots of people also kind of put it up there, is Iron Thorns. I put this as the best rogue deck to play at Worlds, and obviously it did win the event, but being 5.5% is insane. What's one thing very common for the other 5 of these decks here? Well, they all evolve around using rule box Pokemon with abilities to execute their strategies. Chuck with Crushing Hammer, all of a sudden Raging Bolt could be very difficult to extract a ton of energies. Charizard now doesn't have access to Risen Infernal Rain. Gardevoir, yes, I know you have likes of Flutter Me and Klefki, but you have to have them in the active spot, and you don't have to be lost city away for you to actually use it and execute your ability. Like I said, Regidrago V-Star, stopping likes of Ogerpon means it can't be attacking. This is a very, very scary threat, which is what Iron Hand really had to offer. This is definitely one thing which I could definitely see evolving more into the metagame. And going into the likes of day 2, we can see that the numbers did change definitely a little bit, but the deck positions definitely did as well. Regidrago being 28% nearly is, again, an insane number. We haven't seen this since the heyday of Lugia. And that was obviously a very, very scary time. Again, we're seeing here that the most played archetypes were V-Star style decks. I'm very grateful for them to be disappearing in the next few months or so when we finally get rotation. And I do think that the next sort of era, when we're in Sunny Moon, is going to be very different and very exciting as well. Charizard as well and Gardevoir really did fall down quite a lot by not doing as well in the day 2 meta share. But Iron Thorns kind of picked up a bit, being 7.87%. Definitely a very scary archetype to kind of like go around this one. Looking at this metagame percentage-wise, and before we even look at the results, what can we take away with us? I definitely think that we're going to see a lot more Regidrago, seeing how powerful it is, potentially a huge increase in Iron Thorns, pure on the basis obviously at 1, similar likes of Roy Moon as well. Any deck that which really performs really well at the World Championships normally does pretty well in the sort of regional afterwards. Definitely something to be taken away with someone. I think we're going to see these style decks going to have like quite, not like as much hate, but definitely going to be very scary kind of like to deal with as well, and definitely be hard countered. Now, let's actually look at what ended up winning the event. We saw in that first place the Iron Thorns archetype, a very scary deck, which definitely a lot of people didn't really see coming as well. I do think this Iron Thorns had a really good matchup around the rest of the sort of field. Losing, winning against the likes of a Roy Moon is definitely really, again, an argument to tell how powerful these rogue decks were rewarded. Roy Moon getting second place, it gained the likes of the Petron and the Fertility, and you can see it really worked complete to success getting second place. Obviously, top four with a very sad fall of the Miraidon. Jesse was at 14-0 going into his top four match. So it ended up with a record of 14-1, which is again insane numbers. The only loss he took in the entire game was against Iron Forwards in top four. And Regidrago obviously got up there at that another top four. The rest of the top 8 consisted of 3 more Regidragos and 1 Raging Bolt. Top 16 was 2 Regidragos, 2 Lugias, another Miraidon, a Gardevoir, a Charizard, and a Chien-Pao. So people on my channel are going to be very, very happy when we talk about this. Again, if we look at this sort of matchup, what can we really take away with this one? Well, we saw a lot of Regidrago, 6 in the top 16, which is a very, very high number. 2 Miraidons, 2 Lugias, a couple Charizard, Iron Forms, Roy Moon, stuff like that. Obviously a Chien-Pao, which again, very, very happy. I can see here that all of these evolve around these rule box ability Pokemon. So Iron Force is going to do incredibly well. Yes, I know there was sort of the issues that had to come around after the top 8 game, but I don't think we should take that away from any of the players as well. And I do think that Iron Force is a really interesting deck to actually end up winning. I think it kind of shows that there is definitely a weakness in our sort of metagame, that we rely so much on abilities, and Iron Force really capitalizes this one. So that's definitely something to be thinking about as well. I think having Roy Moon and the likes of Regidrago, these big 2-prize and basic decks perform really well, is another thing to see. And Regidrago isn't just one of these decks which performed was the most played sort of archetype as well. You can see here getting a top 4, 3 top 8s, and 2 top 16s. So it was here definitely to stay. So now let's actually look at sort of the decks as well. Kind of give my thoughts and feelings about where I think and how they're sort of going to be placed in the meta. So let's look at Iron Thorns. It's like simple. Just have multiple Iron Thorns out in play. Utilize your Arvens, and generally you have a really good strategy overall. Finals obviously evolved around multiple flipping coins. Crushing Hammer, Counter Catcher. Crushing Hammer to really deny your opponent from having multiple energies out in play is super, super strong. Having your own Turbo Energize, so you can Energy Accelerate your Iron Thorns on your sort of when you go second, or even if it's your second turn of the game, it's really, really powerful. Just keep the energies flowing. That's exactly the gameplay about how this works. And it utilizes on one of the new cards, and the highest placing Shroud of Fables card is Chorus's Tenacity, because not only does it get your energy card, i.e. your double turbo, but also gets you your Lost City, so you can get rid of the sneaky Klefkis, the likes of the Mimikyus if a cancelling clone is out in play, or the likes of Fluttermane as well. I think this deck is very, very scary and hugely capitalized on how the meta is kind of evolving. Like I said, focusing so much on these rule box style decks. Iron Forces sits there and goes, nope, can't use that ability because you're only playing 4 of them. The opponent isn't going to be playing Cancelling Clone every deck. Regidrago plays it on 1, purely on the basis that you want to kind of like utilize your an attack into Mimikyus or Cornerstone Ogerpon. That's why you play Cancelling Clone. Does Regidrago need to play more about it, just so it can kind of energy accelerate against the likes of an Iron Thorns? Definitely something to be considered about as well. The rest of the deck, I think, is really, really nice and straightforward. I love the Future Beast Energy Capture for the free retreat and 2 additional more damage, which we saw really utilized very well in the juniors final, where it can actually hit that 140 damage, the key marker to go against likes of Roaring Moon, the baby Roaring Moon. Again, nothing too crazy. I think the Giovanni's Charisma is a nice little fun little tech to play this one, depending for additional protection as well to pick up and heal your Iron Thorns. It's really, really strong. You play such a heavy disruptive and sports account with having 3 copies of Judge, and 1 Iono. You're in a really good spot. I generally think Iron Thorns is definitely here to stay in the metagame. I hope you guys are going to definitely be enjoying teching against this deck, because I think a lot of people will, because it is a very, very scary archetype. Now let's look at the second place, Roy Moon, which had obviously that Fertility, which lots of people did think this is going to be the highest placed Shroud of Fables card. But not only that, but we see the likes of Petron EX really kind of like open up the likes of Roy Moon. One of the struggles that Roy Moon had is that it's very 3 lengthy sort of attack cost being 3. Again, you can easily power up with Sarda and Dark Patch, but kind of like streamlining them. And Petra EX was such a good answer to this one. You can switch your Roaring Moons from the bench, obviously hit a huge amount of damage in this one. Heck, you can chuck a Binding Mochian to do additional more damage as well. No one really plays this, but it's definitely something which could be considered about in the future. But this deck here is so streamlined and so straightforward. I love this one. Playing the 2 copies of Judge instead of Iono, again, it makes a perfect sense. Against some of these other decks which have these multiple hands or potentially might not be taking too many prizes, the likes of Block Clacks as well. Judging your opponent to 4 cards instead of 6 can be really devastating for the opponent, so I really am a big fan of it. Again, this is a coin flippy style deck, having 4 copies of Pokemon Catcher, utilizing incredible the 4 copies of Pokestop. You only need to play 1 boss or than 1 Prime Catcher. If you play a Pokemon Catcher, heck, even if you flip 2 heads on your Pokemon Capture out of it, you basically have 4 Gusting cards in your deck, which is really, really strong. I like the Night Stretcher. Well, not only can you get some of your Pokemon out, but also your energy for turn as well. 2 Squawk ability because it's so powerful for a Roaring Moon to get that turn 1 attack if you're going second. And having the Baby Moon as well gives you that the odd prize trait as well, whether it be in the early game or late game. It's really, really nice. I really like how Roaring Moon is kind of shaping up in the meta game. Against like Regidrago, obviously you're very scared of using that Frenzy Gouging against them. But yeah, Petra EX for that big turn 1 attack, this big attack in the late game. You just have Calamity Storm to get this big 1-hit carries on the Ogerpons, on the likes of the basic and Regidrago V as well. Very, very much a really exciting deck. Again, not going to the likes of the Raging Greninja, focusing more on just playing straightforward Roaring Moon could potentially be the best way to play this. Now, obviously, let's look at top 4. The Miraidon deck, which ended up getting top 4, by Jesse, and this is a really interesting thing to see. Now, as we know, that crew love Miraidon, and to see obviously he started the format doing really well for Miraidon and ending with Miraidon in top 4 definitely is a huge testament to show about how good the deck builder and pilot when you understand an archetype. There's nothing really hugely standing out from this deck. I really like the Town Store because you have multiple tool cards as well. Getting a Forest Stone, getting a Rescue Board, or even the Bravery Charm as well is really, really nice. Obviously, 2 copies of Iron Hand. This, obviously, when you're focusing against some other decks, you're going to be going against these big Pokemon, but also you're going to be going against likes of Charizard and likes of Gardevoir. So having an answer to this one is really strong. Gone are the likes of playing the likes of Raichu, which is going to be obviously a big answer against most of the decks, so you can really keep your energies and preserve them and not waste them in the late game or kind of like keep them on board. 2 copies of Squawk Ability. Again, we've seen this multiple times because you really value using it on your first or second turn. Miraidon wants to be fast, wants to be aggressive, wants to have all the setup as early as possible. So having 2 copies of Squawk Ability definitely makes a lot of sense. And the 1 copy of Zapdos as well. So you can get to that with that Miraidon, get to that 230 damage, which effectively against the likes of Iron Thorns, it's a correct number to deal with. So I think it's a really, really good sort of key strategy of how to kind of like play this deck. I'm a big, big fan of this style of deck as well. Again, you have the high counts of energies of 2 copies of Double Turbo to really capitalize on getting that turn 1 going second, Iron Hands EX amp you very much. Big, big fan of Miraidon. Really excited to see where it kind of going to progress in the format. Will we see more and more people pick up Miraidon as a fairly cheap sort of style archetype to kind of text with? Or is it a one-trick pony and going to disappear? I'm going to guess not, because Miraidon had a really good showing in the Worlds last year and definitely did very, very well in multiple regionals to come. So this is not the end of Miraidon. It's definitely going to be the beginning. Now let's look at multiple Regidrago lists. This is the one that did in fact get the top 4, and we can see here that it's come back with Cleffa, and I am a big, big Cleffa fan. Having that free retreat pivot is obviously really good. Yes, that 30 HP can easily be killed from the Dragapult, or even having the likes of a Iron Valiant and the likes of the Dusclops line. But I think it's so powerful, especially if you're going second. The Grasping Draw to potentially draw 4 or 5 or sometimes even those 7 key cards is really, really crucial. Gone are the likes of having the 4-3 line of Regidrago, but still keeping the likes of 2 Dragapults, I think is really good. This is your main attack in this style of game, purely on the basis of how good that spread sort of damage counters are. So again, I'm a big, big fan of this one. Giratina over the likes of Raging Bolt is the play. I don't care what anyone really thinks of it. Giratina V-Star is so good. You sacrifice a lot less energy because now you play Kyurem, and also 280 damage is still a huge amount of number to deal with, and you can easily clean them up from the likes of Dragapult EX. No copies of Halucha, so again, can be very much tricky against the Charmanders and Gardevoirs and Dreepies, which have the Regidrago, sorry, which have the 70 HP one, but effectively you could get the extra prize card the turn after. So again, something to be a little bit more mindful of. The Night Stretcher as well, I like to pick up some energy cards. Having the 8 copies of Grass Energy and 2 copies of Fire Energy is a bit different. We've just seen the 7-3 split, so really capitalizing on utilizing your Ogerpon EX. You do play 4 of them. Maybe they're thinking, okay, I'm going to face more Charizard, so I want to really maximize out my outs to attack with Ogerpon as quickly as possible. One go with Canceling Clone, again, you're going through Mimikyus, you're going to go through Cornerstone Ogerpon, and as much as people believe, you're also going to suck down the likes of Iron Thorns. So again, something to really think about. 2 copies of Superior End Retrieval, again, a little bit normal as well, but no copies of Serendipity, and going back to the Mew EX. Definitely thinking that they're going to have a lot more of a slower sort of hand size. That's probably why they're going with a Mew EX. So again, very much an interesting pick as well for the top 4. Now looking at some of the other top 8 ones, we're going to see a little bit of a change as well. Playing here like of the Radiant Charizard and Hawlucha, which I think is a really good inclusion. Having obviously going down, putting back Serendipity, you're seeing the NG switch we're used to, seeing a switch card, seeing 2 Super Rods instead of the Superior End Retrieval and a Temple of Sinnoh. We're seeing so many differences as well with Regidrago. Not only are they always exactly the same, but here there's no Gudra. They don't have that wall protection style of decks. They're only playing 3 of the 4 key attackers as well. But they're still playing the clever because they really value that how powerful it is in the early game. Plus also having a free retreat pivot, which only gives out 1 prize card, is really, really key. And definitely something which I really like about this one. Another sort of one we look at is Raging Bolt, the only other non-Regidrago deck to make top 8. And we can see here that there are some not real differences how we're kind of like seeing the deck sort of progress. I love having the Serendipity, especially in this deck here. You don't have the highest HP at times, it lets you have a Bravery Charm attached to this one. So it kind of like getting an additional 3 extra cards is so key. You're digging closer to get your Professor Sada, or sometimes even the Energy Retrieval, so you can still dig for your Sada as well for drawing through likes of Ogerpon. I think the Sandy Shocks is a really good single prize attacking option. Pretty much any deck which can force their opponent to have an odd sort of prize here and take additional more KO to kind of win the game is obviously a really good step in the right direction. 3 copies of Energy Retrieval, I kind of like. I will obviously like have 4, but I think it works, especially in this sort of meta game. And this is going back with the flipping sort of styled cards with having 3 copies of Pokemon Catcher, 1 Bossordus, 1 Prime Catcher. Again, like I mentioned, even if you flip 1 or 2 of them, additional gusting card which you can play along with either an Iono or Professor Sada is an absolute steal. I think Raging Bolt is going to definitely progressively become much stronger as a metagame. If we are seeing the increase of Iron Forms, potentially having likes of Canceling Clone could be the best way around this one, but there's something really too special about Wizard and Raging Bolt. It's still a very good one. Now let's look at this other Regidrago. I believe this is the Ian Rob sort of version. Again, this is very much a straightforward, streamlined one. One of the interesting things is playing 1 Superior End Retrieval and 1 Super Rod. I kind of like that split. Most people do obviously opt to play the 2 copies of Superior End Retrieval, but having that 1 copy of Super Rod means you can recover more Pokemon as well, and also draw into any of your energy cards from the likes of Earthen Vessel, or even get any of your Pokemon from the likes of Nestball, and not relying on Night Stretcher or even Legacy V-Star sort of ability to kind of like get any of your key Pokemon. Again, we're going with the 4 of the key attackers, still playing the Mew EX and no Cleffer, but still option likes of the Hawlucha and Radiant Charizard. I love Radiant Charizard. I think it is such a good attacker in Regidrago. Again, not too much to really talk about this one. Not very different to how other ones we've seen, but very streamlined. Again, if we're mentioning this lots of the time, that means that these top players, even though none of them may have talked to each other, they kind of like capitalize and think about the same thing. So if you're really learning about how to play a deck, kind of look at the top players. What are they playing? If there's not too many differences in the style of deck, that's something to be really, really key, especially in your deck profile and deck thinking. And finally, let's look at the last top 8 sort of deck here. This one here is just a little bit different. Playing 1 copy of Professor Churro Scenario, which again, I really like this one. And this one is opting to play 2 copies of Super and 1 Superior End Retrieval. No switches, no likes of the Night Vessel, Night Stretcher, just go straight forward with Superior End Retrieval and Super as well. Again, I like these style of decks here, but it doesn't play likes of the Radiant Charizard, so you don't have a single prize attacking option. But it does play the Churro, so you can pick up any of your Pokemon. Yes, you may sacrifice some energies, but doing a Churro scenario after you use a Kyurem or a Giratina with we have no energies on this one, effectively could be a really good sort of play for you to kind of like go around with. Now we're going to look at the top 16 decks, some of the other sort of decks which I believe are very, very strong and really want to talk about. And the first one we're going to look at is Lugia by Rahul Reddy, who ended up getting 9th. They was obviously in going to the top 8 and effectively lost in that sort of style, but did get that top 16. And I'm a big fan of this deck here. Now, we're going back to the older sort of versions and really respecting the likes of a mirror match by playing one copy of Raikou and obviously one copy of Iron Hands and one copy of the basic Lightning Energy. Only a 1/1 line of the Cinccino. Now, this is definitely a bit different to how we've kind of seen the decks of Lugia in the past. Most people are kind of going with the 4-3 line of Cinccino, really capitalizing on the rats and not relying on likes of a Weirdy or likes of a multiple Iron Hands or Drapion to have an attacking option as around. But I think this is a good way of how Lugia is kind of like evolved into this one. It's very clean, very straightforward. 4 copies boss's orders because you want to be disruptive. You want to go 2-2-2 or effectively something if you can 3-3. You want to be that fast, aggressive archetype, really capitalizing and like maxing out on most of your searching cards. I love the Earthen Vessel because not only does it get rid of your Archeops, but also gets you that Lightning Energy, which can be attached to the Raikou V or even likes of the Iron Hands as well. Playing the 1 copy of Mist Energy because it's not as scared against Regidrago matchup. Mist Energy obviously is very helpful to slot the likes of Cinccino, but you're playing the 70 HP one, not the 60 HP stronger one. So you're not, Regidrago, I'm going to get a cheeky prize card that way from the likes of the Dragapult attack. Playing 2 copy Mezzogoza, playing the Serendipity, it opens so many things for your draw factor of the deck. And I love Iron Bundle. Any deck that plays Iron Hands needs to play Iron Bundle because it is so scary to kind of go against. And obviously the Jack as well to get any of your evolving cards, whether it be Lugia V-Star or even likes of the Archeops or Cinccino. I like the attacker option as well, having the Weirder, the Ursaluna, the Iron Hands, and Raikou. This is a really interesting version about how Lugia is kind of going to progress in this format. Is this going to be the best way to play this one? Does it need to play more answers for likes of the Iron Hands? Should we go back to having Fluttermane? Definitely something to be considered about because Fluttermane is going to be a really good key card to kind of play around. Don't play the likes of the Klefki because obviously that's such down your Luminion Vs, but having a Fluttermane could really slow down your opponent if we are going with the more copy of the Iron Hands, which we might see in the metagame going forward. Now let's look at towards top 16 Charizard deck. No surprise that he'll be playing Charizard, but very different to how we kind of seen Charizard. As you know on my channel, I'm a big fan of the Charizard Dust Noir deck, but we're not seeing that at all. We're seeing Bibarel, we're seeing the likes of Pidgeot with a Pidgeotto as well, a 2-1-2 line of Charizard EX, and a 1-1 line of the Rabska. Still playing the Squover and Cleffa as well. So again, this is really interesting to see. Looking at support accounts, not too different to how we're seeing most things, but I love the Fortune as well. Because you may only run a 2-1-2 line of Charizard, but effectively you can use the Fortune, team out with a Super Rod, and also you now have a 3-1-3 line of Charizard effectively with recovering as well. So again, that's something to just super nice. I love a team evolution, how like go up to the Charizard or Pidgeot, or even likes of the Bibarel. Again, I'm a huge fan of the style one. Ravka isn't going to be used in every style deck, but it helps you in so many archetypes. It helps you in the likes of Gardevoir, and obviously it helps you against the likes of Regidrago, which is an absolutely key matchup to kind of go this one. Playing Iron Fair Stamp, I think, is the best way to kind of like team with the likes of Charizard. Have that disruptive capability. Your opponents to take a knockout, unfairly stamping them to 2, chuck a counter catch on their Pidgeot EX, all of a sudden they have you've wiped out most of the huge threats they have in the metagame. 1 copy of Canteen Clone is again a really nice tech. Not only does it stop the likes of Iron Thorns, but also helps you go for likes of Cornerstone Mask Ogerpons and the likes of Mimikyu as well, which again is a really good inclusion. I love obviously Defiance Band because I think it's still a absolute staple. Just do additional 30 more. Even if it's good in the early game or even the late game, this is such a key card. The Clap Statement to get rid of your liabilities. This one doesn't play Rotom, it just goes with Luminium. But there is so many stuff going around on this bench, especially with having the likes of Bibarel as well. So again, it might purely be on the bench space as well. I'm interested in how Charizard is going to progress and evolve. This is a really interesting version to play, and I'm really excited to see how this really impacts Charizard going forward. Will we be adopting the towards sort of version of how to play Charizard, or are we still going to keep the very faithful one, which is very well in Japan, with Dust Noir? Now let's look at Gardevoir's top 16 deck. And again, a little bit different to how we're seeing most of it kind of evolve. We're seeing the Klefki, we're seeing the Fluttermane. So again, really going to slow down certain archetypes. But we are seeing some of the new cards go through having that Night Stretcher. Most people have been testing the likes of Serendipity, but people have opted to kind of like cut it completely because you don't want to have a 2-price Pokemon have the liability on your bench. Getting Presbyterian scenario like pick up your Gardevoir is really good to maintain a single price board state. I love having the TM Devolution, like I mentioned previously. It is so good to have that multiple price turn. It can be easy set up for likes of Monkey Dory as well. And the Enhanced Hammer. People are predicting a lot of Lugia, so using Enhanced Summon to remove a Legacy energy, especially against the likes of it and very much Iron Hands, is obviously a huge key thing for your strategy. Not really too many things different to kind of talk about. Only one copy of Nest Ball, which we've seen like normally 2 of as well, so a little bit different that way. But I think the supporter line is really nice. I think Roast Fit is absolutely perfect in most sort of decks as well. I do think the Radiant Greninja is definitely a bit of a surprise. Most Gardevoir players have opted not to play Greninja because it can be a little bit of a limitation on the bench. This deck only plays 1 copy of Super Rod, so kind of like you're not really utilizing your psychic energies as much as possible. So that's definitely something to be a little bit of a kind of thing to think about going forward. And finally, let's look at my favorite deck and everyone's favorite on the channel, Chien-Pao, with Lucas-san getting top 16. And I really like this deck. Obviously, if you can't tell, I'm a huge Chien-Pao head, and obviously it's my most successful video is talking about Chien-Pao. There are some differences in here where we kind of like going forward. It does play a 1/1 line in the Palkia V-Star. Now, not before Palkia Terrapagos absolutely dominates the metagame in a few months' time, but we're seeing this one in Chien-Pao, and it makes a lot of sense. Not only is it a really good attacking option by doing 260 damage, but also having the Star Portal to kind of have that energy acceleration. Scared if you don't have to utilize your superior energy retrieval or it gets eroded away. You can just energy accelerate that way, which I think is a really, really good key thing. We're seeing 2 new cards from Shrouded Fable, 1 copy of Feathertippity and 1 copy of Night Stretcher. We also only have the gusting effect of an Iron Bundle and Prime Catcher. Again, that's normal, but support accounts are a little bit different. 4 Erodents, nothing surprising there, but 1 Iono, 1 Code Breaking, and 1 copy of Silene. After being multiple doing testing, I think Silene definitely is a stay for Chien-Pao as long as possible. Kind of like bringing back a Prime Catcher, bringing back a Superior Energy Retrieval, bringing back a Rare Candy. It's absolutely key for your strategy. And I think it could be really powerful. If you don't play this one and it's like, oh, I've wasted my supporter, but don't bank on that all the time. I think having a 3-1 split of the Frigibacks, but having one of that 70 HP one, having again additional protection. If you are absolutely scared about Regidrago, you could easily lose from this sort of style when if you don't evolve any of your best Excaliburs and they can get your Kirim to a board wipe. Definitely something to be considered about that way. Apart from that, very, very clean, very, very straightforward. I really, really like this Chien-Pao. It is going to be here to stay. It did a lot better than I thought it would with a couple top 32s as well. So Chien-Pao definitely performed much, much stronger going into this new format, which I'm very, very excited about. Now let's look at the YouTube predictions poll, which I did over a few weeks ago and talked about last week. So let's see how right were we. Which deck on day 1 had the highest meta share? We all voted Charizard. It ended up obviously being Regidrago. Which ace spec will be played the most in the top 8? Prime Catcher, I think nearly religiously. That is nearly every single top 8 deck. So that's quite interesting to see completely. Which deck will have the most top 8 placements? People voted Regidrago. Half the top 8 placements were Regidrago, so it makes complete sense. Now this is when we kind of like fall by the wayside. Which of the new decks will have the best placement? Actually, none of them made day 2. No new archetypes made it. So we all thought loyal trio, but generally I do not know. This is going to be a day 1 sort of share. If anyone played this one, would probably be the best one. Which card from Shroud will have highest placement? Everyone kind of voted for Feathertippity because they thought that's the easy answer. Well, no one predicted the likes of Iron Hands, and we weren't thinking Chorus's Tenacity. That was actually the highest placing Shroud of Fables card. If Royal Moon won, we could obviously argue Feathertippity, but technically it'd be like the Petron. And which deck will win the Masters World Championships 2024? Everyone voted for Regidrago, and it ended up with obviously Iron Thorns. So again, very different to how we thought this metagame would really progress into this one. So out of all predictions we made on YouTube, we were a third right. So not exactly 100% and everything, but definitely something to be a little bit more thinking about for going forward in the future. And no one could really predict Iron Thorns to be as powerful as it was. Now, let's actually look at the impact of the meta, kind of like my closing thoughts after the World Championships. Big basics are back. If we look at the metagame, and even counting like some Regidrago as well, these style decks here, there are so many big basic archetypes going around in this format. So again, that's something to really think about. We did not respect Iron Thorns as much. It was talked a lot about going to the format. A lot of people saw a huge resurgence of Iron Thorns. Lots of people were talking about Iron Thorns, but we didn't go in there respecting it at all. And we rely so much on Wallbox abilities. That's what Iron Thorns really capitalized on it. Managed to get the win, managed to do incredibly well day 1 and day 2 because we didn't respect Iron Thorns as much. So again, this is something to really consider about. Should we be now respecting Iron Thorns? If we respect it now, then it's going to be ingrained in our head because it's one of the only ability lock style decks right now. Did Charizard really need Dusknoir? We saw that some of the best players in the world and some of the best placing Charizard at Worlds did not play Dusknoir. So were we completely off the money with Dusknoir? Again, looking at the Japanese results, we can be very different. Looking at the likes of him with Dragapult. Dragapult was going to look like it's going to be the best deck right now in the format. I was talking and hype in it, but it didn't perform very well at NEIC. The likes of Charizard Dusknoir performed incredibly well in Japan, but didn't perform well at World Championships. Something to really think about. An increase in Miraidon and Iron Thorns. What will this mean in the metagame? Well, we're going to be prepared for more Iron Ampy very much. And also Iron Thorns is very, very scary. So that's something to really think about going forward. And can evolution decks keep up? Gardevoir obviously takes a few turns to really keep going, but Iron Thorns really slows down deck completely. And you don't want to have any of your key disruptive cards at the start. Like your Klefki and Fluttermane, because they could easily be lost either way. And the likes of Charizard doesn't keep up at all with Iron Thorns because it has no access to that Infernal Rain. And with multiple Crushing Hammers, your NGs are not going to be sticking. So again, this is something to really think about going into this format. Will this be reminded as one of the best formats for Worlds? Will this be one of the worst formats for Worlds? That's definitely not that one, because I thought this format was very, very fun. There were so many intricate plays around this one, really rewarded the rogue style decks, and really excited to see where it can kind of bring into the sort of regional style level decks. I'm going to be talking tomorrow about the impact of the owner's Pokemon coming back and some of the other new cards as well. So be sure to check that out tomorrow on my channel, same sort of time, 7:30 UK time. So hope you guys have enjoyed this video. What is your honest feelings about this Worlds? What did you enjoy this one? Are there any really key standout moments, whether it be from the stream or whether it be from sort of the decks you were playing, or generally seeing sort of the environment as well? I thought this Worlds looked absolutely like a ton of fun. I was really happy with everyone who I was supporting there, and everyone who I was seeing and really wanted to do well did do well as well. None of them did make day 2, but the results they had were absolutely incredible, and I'm so proud of every single one of them. So hope you guys have enjoyed this Worlds breakdown. If you have, please remember to like, subscribe, comment down below your favorite moment of this World Championships, and I will see you guys later. Bye for now.